Before these words vanish, before the internet flags this message as too dangerous, you need to hear this. Your whole life, you've believed that what you see, hear, and touch is all there is. You were taught that death is a hard stop, the absolute end, and that the world around you is solid and stable. But what if that's all an illusion? What if reality is more like a shimmering field of possibilities, more like a dream than a brick wall? This isn't a joke or some wild conspiracy. Top physicists, neuroscientists, and consciousness experts are saying the floor beneath our feet isn't what it seems. If you're ready to stretch your mind and see the world in a new way, keep watching. Once you glimpse this truth, you can't go back. You've probably heard words like quantum particles or string theory, but you might not have faced what they really mean. Physics tells us that at the tiniest levels, things get weird. Particles can act like waves of pure potential. They can be in more than one place at the same time until someone observes them. Some particles remain linked even when they're far apart, like invisible connections outside of normal space and time. These aren't fantasies, they're facts tested in labs. And here's the shocking part. If your body, your cells, your atoms, the electrons in every part of you follow these strange quantum rules, then your consciousness might too. That means your ideas about life and death, about what's possible or impossible, might be way off. Modern science is rewriting the story, and the old rules no longer fit. I used to think life ended at death, like a candle flame snuffed out forever. But then I started reading research papers and interviews with top scientists who questioned the role of the mind in shaping reality. I learned about Nobel-level thinkers like John Wheeler and Henry Stapp, who openly asked if consciousness affects the world around us. I read about the Penrose-Hameroff OR theory, suggesting that quantum events inside the tiny parts of our brain cells might create awareness. I discovered Tibetan teachings that have said for centuries that the mind can go beyond the physical body. At first, I was upset. It felt like my whole view of reality was being hammered into a new shape. But then I felt excited. If consciousness isn't just a spark in the brain, if it's wired into the universe itself, then maybe death isn't the end. Maybe what we call reality is far bigger and stranger than we ever imagined. Quantum theory, one of the most successful ideas in science, has never failed a test. Yet it makes no common sense. Think about these points. The observer effect. In the double-slit experiment, light acts like a wave unless someone observes it. With observation, it behaves like a particle. This suggests that watching something changes its outcome. Consciousness matters. Quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Two particles can be linked so that if you measure one, the other instantly changes its state, even if they're miles apart. Tests show this works over huge distances. If particles can stay connected no matter how far they go, could consciousness also work like that? Quantum information and black holes. Some scientists, like Leonard Susskind, think the universe is made of information rather than just matter. If that's true, then maybe consciousness isn't locked inside your head. Maybe it's part of a giant field of information. These discoveries suggest that reality isn't a stage with fixed props. It's more like a show that changes depending on who's watching. It's a dance between observers and the world. Neuroscientists have tried to find the source of consciousness inside the brain, but they keep hitting a wall. They can find what parts of the brain light up when we think or feel, but they can't say why we have a personal inner experience. This is called the hard problem of consciousness. Some now think the brain is like a radio. A radio doesn't create music, it just receives signals. Maybe the brain receives consciousness from somewhere else. Dr. Pim van Lommel's studies on near-death experiences, printed in The Lancet, a top medical journal, found that some people who were clinically dead still had clear, detailed experiences. They later described these events accurately, even though their brains weren't working at the time. While not everyone agrees on what this means, it hints that consciousness might exist beyond the body. You might feel torn right now. Part of you might think this sounds too crazy, like mixing science and wishful thinking. But another part of you might feel a quiet yes inside. You've always had a sense that there's more to the world than what you were taught. This is your chance to question those old ideas. If the quantum world is so strange, if the mind can influence matter, then maybe death isn't a total stop. Maybe it's just a door between different states of being, just like the Tibetan traditions have said for so long. What if these ancient Tibetan masters, who talked about bardo states, where the mind travels after death, were describing something real, something that today's quantum scientists are just starting to understand? In the next chapters, we'll dig deeper. We'll see how strange quantum behavior matches the journeys described in these mystical texts. We'll explore how death might be less like a wall and more like a shift in a giant quantum web of life. Get ready. Once you see how quantum mechanics shakes up our idea of an ending, and how the Tibetans knew for ages that the mind is not locked in the body, you'll never look at life, death, or yourself the same way again. This isn't just theory, it's a wake-up call. Are you ready to peek behind the curtain? This is only the start. Next, we'll dive even deeper into the details of quantum consciousness. We'll look at experiments, studies, and stories that make the picture clearer. We're stepping into a place where reality isn't fixed, but fluid. A place where you have a say in what unfolds. Keep watching, because you're about to discover that you are both a witness and a creator in this vast, mysterious universe. Now that we've opened the door to quantum thinking, let's step right into the heart of it. Forget stuffy textbooks and complicated math for a moment. Today's science is like a cosmic detective story that might finally prove what ancient wisdom has hinted at for centuries. Our reality isn't something out there, separate from us. It might actually form, at least in part, from the dance between our minds and the strange world of quantum physics. Quantum mechanics is the most successful theory in physics. It's behind the technology in your phone, the lasers in factories, and even the GPS that guides your car. But the deeper meaning of quantum theory is shocking. It says that tiny particles, the building blocks of everything, don't settle down into a single state until someone looks at them. Before they're observed, they exist as wave functions, basically a bunch of possibilities. Only when we check do these possibilities lock into a real event. Some famous scientists, like John Wheeler and Eugene Wigner, even suggested that our minds might be part of this process. If that's true, then we're not just watching reality unfold, we're helping to shape it. Consider Schrödinger's cat, one of the most famous mind-bending ideas in physics. You put a cat in a box with a trigger that can either kill it or leave it alive. Until you open the box and look, the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. It's not that the cat is just hiding, it's a picture of how, at the smallest level, things can be many possibilities at once. Only when you peek does reality choose. If that weirdness makes you shiver, it should. If reality runs on superposition, multiple possibilities existing at once, what does that say about your life, your choices, and even what we call death? Experiments, like the double-slit test, drive this point home. Shoot tiny particles at a barrier with two slits. If no one watches, they form a pattern as if they're waves going through both slits at once. But the moment you set up a detector to see which slit they go through, the wave pattern disappears, and they behave like solid particles. This shows that observation itself changes what happens. Research in top journals, like Physical Review letters, proves that our act of observing affects the outcome. This blasts apart the old idea that reality is just sitting there, waiting for us to see it. Instead, it suggests that your mind and your attention help shape what's real. Big thinkers like John Wheeler talked about a participatory universe. This means the universe and its observers are partners in creation. Others, like Paul Davies and Bernardo Kastrup, have suggested that mind might be more basic than matter. Some scientists even try to measure consciousness as a form of information, hinting that your thoughts could be as fundamental to the universe as atoms and energy. If that sounds like old Eastern ideas where mind and awareness are at the center of everything, That's no accident. It's amazing how these modern theories line up with ancient spiritual traditions. One of the strangest parts of quantum theory is entanglement, where two particles seem connected instantly across any distance. Imagine if consciousness works something like that too. Some studies, while not fully proven, suggest that people can sense when they're being watched, or that distant intentions might have small effects. Although still debated, these results raise the possibility that consciousness might reach beyond the body, connecting us in ways we don't fully understand. If Tibetan teachings talk about a web of consciousness linking all beings, isn't it wild that quantum science might back this up? We also have theories like OR by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggesting that quantum activities inside our brain cells might give rise to consciousness. This idea isn't widely accepted yet, but scientists keep exploring if living systems can maintain quantum states. If that's possible, then maybe our minds aren't just brain machines. Maybe they're tapping into something deeper and more lasting. If consciousness is a kind of quantum information, then death might not be a total end. Information can be stored, copied, and moved around. The holographic principle in physics suggests the whole universe might store information in weird, unexpected places. Maybe what the Tibetans called the bardos states, transitions of consciousness between lives, aren't just myths. Maybe at some level consciousness could reorganize itself after the body dies, like data moving to a new hard drive. Picture a shimmering web of energy, millions of possibilities all interlaced. Your mind is a unique pattern in that web. Your experiences tune that pattern. When you pay attention to something, you pick one possibility out of many, turning a wave of chances into one solid event. Death breaks the body. But what if the pattern of you remains at some deeper level? Maybe it just shifts into a new form, like changing a radio channel without losing the music. This isn't just some fringe idea. You'll find respected scientists, philosophers, and university courses grappling with these questions. They're looking at quantum theory and consciousness side by side, asking if mind and matter are truly separate. While some dismiss these thoughts, many admit that the old material-only worldview has cracks. Through these cracks, we glimpse a universe that includes you, your mind, your awareness, as an essential player. If hearing this gives you goosebumps, that's natural. You might have always felt there was more to life than what meets the eye. Now, you've got science nudging you, whispering, yes, there's more going on. If quantum physics bends reality to the observer's gaze, why not our minds and life after death? In the next part, we'll see how these scientific breakthroughs line up with Tibetan death codes, ancient texts that talk about consciousness traveling through different states after death. What if these states are just what quantum physics describes in another language? What if science and spirituality are two sides of the same coin, both revealing that we're part of a grand interconnected dance of energy and awareness? Get ready. The old rules about life being a short, one-way trip and death being a dead end are crumbling. We're uncovering a reality more flexible, more creative, and more alive than we ever thought possible. Stick with us, and we'll dive even deeper into this quantum spiritual frontier, where you might just discover that you're not a bystander in the story of reality, but a co-author. We've looked at cutting-edge science, quantum experiments, studies of consciousness, and the wild idea that what's real might depend on who's watching. Now, let's travel back in time to ancient Tibet. For hundreds of years, Tibetan mystics and yogis have charted inner realms that don't appear on any ordinary map. They called these in-between states of consciousness the bardos. The surprising thing? Their old wisdom lines up in mind-blowing ways with modern quantum science, hinting at a deeper truth that cuts across both history and culture. In Tibetan Buddhism, a bardo is a transition zone. The most famous example comes from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, known as the Bardo Thodul. Far from just a funeral text, it's more like a user's guide for consciousness as it moves through strange states between death and rebirth, where the difference between your inner mind and the outside world starts to blur. Translations by people like Walter Evans Wentz introduced the West to these ideas a century ago, and more recent work by scholars like Francesca Fremantle and Chogyam Trungpa gives us clearer, more accurate insights. These bardos aren't only about what happens after you die. They also include times in life, like dreaming, meditating, and big personal changes. Tibetan teachings say that death isn't just lights out. Instead, it's like a door opening onto subtler levels of reality. They talk about several bardos, bardo of birth and life, the state we're in right now, moving through life's stages. Bardo of the moment of death, where, as the body fades, consciousness might meet a pure, bright light. The texts say, this light is your true nature. Bardo of the luminous mind. After death, the mind may see stunning visions, both beautiful and scary, revealing your deepest traits. Bardo of becoming. Here, if you're not freed, your past patterns push you toward a new life, much like quantum states collapsing into a set outcome. This viewpoint is wild. It suggests that consciousness flows through phases not just inside us or outside us, but in a space that mixes both, where what's real seems flexible, shaped by the mind. Now consider quantum theory. It says matter and energy exist as probabilities until observed. The bardos describe something similar for consciousness. Before you're reborn, your mind might be like a quantum wave of possibilities. Actual birth is like the final collapse into one life from many options. Think that's too much of a stretch? Scholars like Alan Wallace, who knows both Buddhism and physics, have noted how well the Tibetan view of mind fits with quantum ideas of reality. Sure, it's not hard proof, but it's more than a coincidence that both the newest physics and these ancient teachings point to a universe shaped by the observer. Long before quantum mechanics existed, Tibet was a place of intense inner research. Monks spent decades training their minds in solitude, observing their thoughts and feelings as closely as a scientist watches particles in a lab. The bardos weren't just theories, they were maps drawn from experience. Teachers like Padmasambhava talked about staying aware during death to break free from the endless cycle of rebirth, kind of like using your knowledge of quantum states to pick the outcome you want. Advanced texts, studied by serious scholars like Robert Thurman, show how these teachings were once kept secret, passed down orally to students who were ready to handle them. Just like advanced physics takes years of math, Tibetan death codes demanded serious mental training. You might ask, how did the Tibetans figure this out, without telescopes, microscopes, or particle smashers? Their tool was the mind itself. Through meditation, they reached states of pure awareness, a kind of clear light that sounds a lot like a fundamental field of consciousness. Compare that to how physicists refine their experiments to see quantum effects. Both are looking for hidden truths. Physicists use gadgets, Tibetan yogis use deep meditation. Both find that the line between the knower and the known gets blurry. It's easy to overhype these connections, but the similarities are too big to ignore. Consider a few key points. You might ask, how did the Tibetans figure this out without telescopes, microscopes, or particle smashers? Their tool was the mind itself. Through meditation, they reached states of pure awareness, a kind of clear light that sounds a lot like a fundamental field of consciousness. Compare that to how physicists refine their experiments to see quantum effects. Both are looking for hidden truths. Physicists use gadgets, Tibetan yogis use deep meditation. Both find that the line between the knower and the known gets blurry. It's easy to overhype these connections, but the similarities are too big to ignore. Consider a few key points: impermanence and quantum flux. Buddhism says everything changes. Quantum fields show particles popping in and out of existence. Both say nothing is permanent. Emptiness and quantum vacuum. Tibetans talk about shunyata, emptiness, meaning nothing stands alone. Quantum physics shows particles as ripples in underlying fields, never truly separate. Interconnectedness and entanglement. Buddhists say we're all connected. Quantum entanglement shows that particles can be linked instantly across huge distances. It's a total "I knew it" moment that can send chills down your spine. These parallels have sparked fresh conversations. The Mind and Life Institute, started by the Dalai Lama and Western scientists, hosts meetings where monks, brain researchers, and physicists compare notes. They publish their talks online, and you can see cutting-edge discussions that blend spiritual practice with scientific data. For many people, learning about these connections isn't shocking, it's reassuring. Maybe you've always felt deep down that life isn't just a meaningless machine running on empty rules. When you see how Tibetan bardos match up with quantum possibilities, it can feel like meeting an old friend. Suddenly, that quiet feeling that there must be more seems valid, not just a fantasy. No one's asking you to swallow this whole without thinking. The point is to show that ancient wisdom and modern science might be shining light on the same mystery from different angles. The bardos challenge you to realize that your mind is powerful, that it can shape what happens after death, just as observation shapes quantum states. Instead of facing death as a scary endpoint, you can see it as a chance to guide your consciousness, like steering a boat through a mysterious ocean of possibilities. The ultimate goal in Tibetan practice is to break free from the cycle of suffering. Quantum mechanics won't teach you how to meditate, but it does show that outcomes depend on observation and choice. Put the two together, and you get a huge idea. By training your mind, you might guide what comes next. Tibetan masters spent entire lives growing compassion, clarity, and calmness. They did this so that when they hit those bright realms after death, they recognized them and gained freedom. In quantum language, they focused their observer's lens so well that they could pick the best outcome. Today, these once-hidden teachings are widely available. You can read new translations of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, go to classes at Buddhist centers, or even find online courses led by Tibetan lamas. As you learn, you'll see how these ideas fit not just with your gut feelings, but also with modern scientific hints. Groups like Rigpa or FPMT offer programs to help you explore. The Dalai Lama himself has talked to scientists for decades, and his book, The Universe in a Single Atom, bridges these gaps even more. All of these resources show that what's ancient and what's cutting edge might actually be partners, not rivals. In the end, the meeting of Tibetan wisdom and quantum thought can spark a new understanding. It's like finding two puzzle pieces you never knew fit together. By exploring these teachings, you open yourself to a universe that's bigger, deeper, and more connected than the one you learned about in school. You discover that reality might be a grand dance of mind and matter, and you're invited onto the dance floor. Up until now, we've laid a strong foundation. We've learned that what some call the Tibetan death teachings aren't just strange religious ideas. They actually map out states of mind that match ideas in quantum physics. We've seen that reality might not be a fixed, solid thing. Instead, it might be shaped by possibilities, choices, and the way we pay attention. It's less about hard facts and more about how our minds help choose what becomes real. Next, we'll take these big ideas and turn them into practical steps you can use in everyday life. How do we get ready not just for death, but for every big change we face? How can meditation, compassion, and understanding the idea of impermanence help us sail through this quantum sea of possibilities? The answers aren't just in theory. They're in real practices, that can help you live with purpose and approach life's final doorway without fear, but with calm understanding. Get ready, because next we'll dive into real actions you can take, ways to transform yourself using both ancient Tibetan methods and the quantum viewpoint we've explored. You'll see that these teachings aren't dusty old relics, but living tools that can shape your life right now. We've taken a deep journey through tricky theories and big spiritual insights, exploring how quantum ideas meet ancient Tibetan knowledge. But cool facts alone don't change your life. What really matters is how you use these insights today, so they can reshape how you see life's changes, including death, and give you more clarity and strength in every moment. Tibetan wisdom isn't locked away in old books. It's meant to guide your daily life. For centuries, Tibetan masters have shown us how to train our minds to face change, even death, not with terror, but with openness. Modern science backs this up. Research on meditation published in places like JAMA Internal Medicine and Personality and Social Psychology Review shows that focusing your mind regularly can rewire your brain. This helps you handle stress and fear better. Our brains are flexible and can change through practice. This means we can turn fear and anxiety into a steady calm, even in the face of the unknown. Start small. Spend a few quiet minutes each morning paying attention to your breath. Imagine letting go of old beliefs that keep you stuck. Over time, add more ideas from the Tibetan tradition. One strong method is to picture impermanence. Imagine your body, stuff, and relationships dissolving into light. It might feel scary at first, but by noticing this fear without running away, you teach your mind that the end of form isn't a punishment or a pointless void. Studies show that facing death honestly makes you cherish life more, helping you feel grateful for every breath. Once you get used to this, try adding compassion training, called Tonglen, in Tibetan practice. You breathe in the world's pain and breathe out kindness and healing. It might sound poetic, but modern science says that feeling compassion can boost your well-being. Picture breathing in the world's troubles and breathing out relief. Over time, you'll feel more connected to others, matching the quantum idea that everything is linked at the core. Instead of feeling alone or scared, you'll sense that you belong to a huge, wonderful web of life. You can also shape your life by setting intentions. Just like scientists find that watching particles changes how they behave, your focus can shift your own outcomes. Each morning, write down a positive intention. Maybe you'll choose to be patient or open to uncertainty. Picture yourself living this intention throughout the day. Psychology tells us that having clear goals and focusing on them makes us more adaptable. Over weeks and months, you'll notice changes in your habits and emotions, just like choosing which quantum path a particle will take. Remember, these practices won't make you superhuman. You'll still feel fear, sadness, and confusion because you're human. But what changes is how you deal with them. Tibetans say most suffering comes from fighting against the fact that nothing lasts forever. By seeing life's changes, even death, as natural and not evil, you stop feeling like a victim. Modern studies on meditation show that staying calm under stress can actually change your body's response, making you stronger in tough times. If both your body and mind learn to bend instead of break, imagine how much more ready you'll be to face life's biggest transition, leaving your body behind. Don't expect instant results. Real change takes time and patience. Start small. 5 minutes of stillness in the morning, a quick note of gratitude in a journal, a gentle reminder that this breath too will pass. Add more over time. Maybe imagine quantum fields of possibility, practice compassion towards someone difficult, or think about your own death before bed to soften your fears. Keep track of what changes inside you. Do you feel less tense, more curious, better able to accept the unknown? You're not on this path alone. People around the world are exploring these ideas together, both online and in person. Groups like the Mind and Life Institute bring scientists and meditators together, closing the gap between spiritual insight and real data. Local meditation centers run workshops on Buddhist teachings, mindfulness or compassion. By learning with others, you'll feel supported and gain fresh ideas, turning your solo practice into a group journey. As your understanding grows, what once seemed like huge mysteries, quantum weirdness, secret Tibetan codes, start to feel like mirrors of your own mind. Theory and practice become one. You realize that even at the smallest scale, reality isn't fixed. It unfolds with your choices and focus. The same is true inside you. By guiding your thoughts and habits, you reshape your inner world. Over time, these practices help you see a stunning truth. You are not a still photograph that disappears at death, but more like a pattern of consciousness, riding a quantum wave of endless possibilities. Every breath, every meditation, every kind act trains you, not just for day-to-day changes, like a new job or aging, but also for that ultimate change we call death. When your time comes, you might meet it not with panic, but with recognition. You'll have practiced this moment in your mind. You'll know how to stand at the edge of form and watch it fall away, trusting that your awareness continues beyond what you see. As we move forward, hold these tools close. The time you invest in training your mind now will help you in countless ways. You won't just live more bravely and kindly. You'll face life's final bardo with calm eyes and an open heart, ready to discover what lies behind the curtain of form. This is where ancient wisdom and modern science meet in your own hands, guiding you toward greater freedom, strength, and understanding. Think about the journey we've taken. We started with quantum mechanics, where tiny particles can be in multiple states at once until observed, and where spooky entanglement breaks all our usual rules of distance. We learned that quantum ideas challenge how we think about reality, suggesting that your mind and awareness really do matter. Then, we stepped into Tibetan wisdom. Centuries ago, these masters described consciousness traveling through many realms, passing through subtle states called bardos. Their teachings, known as the Tibetan death codes, weren't random myths. They were careful maps of a shifting, flowing consciousness. Modern science is now catching up, hinting that reality might be less like a solid wall and more like a shared creation, shaped by how we pay attention. It's incredible that these very different traditions, modern physics and ancient Tibetan meditation, point toward the same deeper truth. Tibetan masters spoke of a luminous emptiness, full of possibility. Quantum scientists talk about vacuum states bubbling with virtual particles. Buddhists say that consciousness is linked to how we see the world, and quantum researchers find that measurements decide which potentials become real. It's like they've both been telling us the same secret from opposite sides. This isn't just heady stuff. It's personal. You can use meditation, set intentions, practice compassion, and visualize possibilities to line up your everyday life with these big truths. Studies from places like the Center for Healthy Minds prove that habits like meditation can change your brain, helping you handle emotions and stress. This echoes the Tibetan idea that inner training can transform your entire experience. Now think about death, our biggest unknown. Ancient and modern views suggest it's not a dead end, but a doorway. Tibetans say after physical death, consciousness meets bright clarity and shifting visions, shaped by your own patterns. Quantum hints show information might not vanish even when matter changes form. Some researchers think the mind might survive beyond the body, much like quantum info never truly disappears. Maybe death is just another change, a new shape in an endless dance. If this sounds too far out, remember that every great discovery once seemed impossible. Quantum theory used to sound crazy, and now it's the backbone of modern tech. Neuroscience is still young. Maybe one day it'll show us how consciousness reaches beyond our skulls. The point is, we're exploring a new frontier, where we can see death not as a tragedy, but as a passage into unknown dimensions of life. This understanding changes how you feel. Instead of living like you're on a countdown, you can live like a traveler. Each second becomes precious, not because time runs out, but because you're part of something huge and ongoing. When you lose your fear, you stop clinging to what's familiar and start exploring existence with courage and compassion. Quantum and Tibetan ideas give you a kind of power. They say you're not a random dot in the universe. You're part of its unfolding story. Tibetan teachings ask you to recognize illusions as mental creations, so you can guide your journey through death and beyond. Quantum theory reminds us that what's real depends partly on us. Together, they say you're not weak or trapped. You're a co-creator of reality, weaving the story of your own life. As you soak this in, notice how it fits with feelings you've always had. Maybe you sensed that life is more than a short spark in the dark. Maybe you felt love, creativity, and insight came from somewhere deeper. Now you have a framework where science and spirituality agree enough to support these intuitions. Your personal experiences, those weird coincidences, moments of deep calm, or flashes of insight, suddenly make more sense. Of course, we don't have all the answers, we're still explorers, and these ideas are still unfolding. Quantum physics is strange, and we don't fully understand consciousness yet. Tibetan teachings are deep and need real work to master. But we have an invitation to learn, question, and experiment. You can pioneer your own path, using these tools to shape a more meaningful life. Try it out. The next time something hard happens, see yourself as choosing from quantum possibilities. Will you react with anger or understanding? Your choices add up, shaping who you are and what you become. Just as scientists tune their instruments, you can train your mind to notice subtle aspects of reality. In doing so, you become a co-creator, shaping the life you live, and maybe even what comes after. When death approaches, maybe it won't feel like a cliff edge anymore. Maybe it'll feel like the next chapter in a cosmic adventure. Tibetan texts give you a roadmap, and quantum theory gives you reason to suspect that change doesn't mean the end. The universe recycles information. Possibilities remain endless. Consciousness could continue to dance in ways we haven't yet imagined. As we wrap this up, let's respect how brave it is to blend tough science with old spiritual insight. Big leaps in understanding often happen when we dare to mix ideas that don't seem to fit. By doing so, we inch closer to truths that can bring more wisdom, kindness, and freedom into our lives. Carry this understanding with you. Let it ease your fears and spark your curiosity. Let it help you love more deeply and live more boldly. Look at the stars and imagine not emptiness, but a network of countless possibilities. Know that your consciousness has a special place in this grand design, making it all more vivid and meaningful than you ever dared hope. Now look at the path we've traveled. We questioned old beliefs about death, mind, and the nature of reality. We found quantum rules that defy what we thought we knew. We found Tibetan maps of the mind that hint at hidden dimensions. We realized we might be active players in a grand unfolding cosmic story. Instead of seeing death as a cold stop, we can see it as a doorway into new forms of awareness. What felt powerless now feels charged with creative energy. Now don't let this fire go out. Spread these ideas. Share this video with friends who hunger for deeper meaning. Post it in places where daring thinkers hang out. Comment below about what struck you, challenged you, or what you want to explore further. Together we can build a tribe of explorers, people who refuse to be limited by old stories and are ready for a bigger vision of what life and death could be. If you're ready to free your mind, drop a yes below. Smash that subscribe button if you crave more hidden truths. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new insight. Let's start a movement. A wave of curiosity, courage, and open hearts that changes how we understand not just reality, but ourselves. Because this doesn't end here. It starts now. Let's reshape our world. One mind, one insight, and one fearless conversation at a time.